In this video, I'm going to cover a little bit more about how to use custom code to interact with the database in Jam.py. So let's take a look at this application. What I've got here is, you can see there is a little web page layout included here. I did that with Grapes Studio. I'm going to show you how to import that code so you can use a visual builder to build just sort of generic web pages in and deliver them with Jam.py. And then I've got a custom interface to the database here. So this is a forum interface. And I've got also some default grids that interface with that same database. A master details set of tables. And also one of my favorite things to do is use a third-party framework to interact with the same database. So we'll cover all of that and go through here and show you how that all was done. So the first page you saw there is a generic web page layout. I created that with this little Grapes editor. This is a free open source editor, a visual editor that lets you just sort of drag and drop sections and items onto the page and then neatly change their layout and sizing and spacing and all. So a nice little visual builder. You can create menus and that sort of thing. So typical little website building capabilities. And this was just an example that came with it. I didn't change anything about it. So you can see here, you can look at the code that you've got that creates this, this page. And this is all the HTML, and if you've got any JavaScript that runs here, you're going to see that here on this page. This is just pure HTML. And then the CSS, which is used to style that page, is over here. So where we put that in Jam.py is here. We're going to grab the sections that we want. We don't want any of the body code or any of the head code, just these divs down here. We copy all of this, basically everything within the body tags, the div tags that we need. And over here we go select task and then the index.html for the entire project. We've talked about this in the previous tutorials. And then down here I have my custom classes in the HTML file that we're going to import into different pages, different tasks on the Jam.py project. So what I did here is, this is all this copied code that I grabbed from the Grapes builder. That's the layout there. And you can see I put that inside a class which I gave a name. I called this class Grapes Layout. So that's everything you see here inside a div which I named Grapes Layout. And here is all of our CSS code that Grapes has created to style that. And you do that visually in Grapes. And so where that's going to go is, again, in our task menu item, we're going to click on project.css. So this is the project CSS for the entire project. So you can see I have a little bit of CSS for a form container, and then this is where I pasted, and you can give a little, just give this, call this Grapes, and we'll comment that out. And so this is where I took all of the CSS from the Grapes builder and just copied it, and you can see Grapes uses these unique identifiers to mark each section. And I have CSS for another little sort of demo page that I included down here, which I just called test. So we can put a lot of CSS for different pages in here, as long as everything is identified differently. And in order to put that, display that on the page, I just created a journal. So actually, is it a journal? Yes, that is the journal. So you can see here I've got a journal page called Generic Inserted Grapes Web Page Layout. And all we're doing here is, in the client mode, we are taking this section, this template from our HTML page, and cloning it, and then emptying the current view form and appending our template that we've imported. That's it. So you put your HTML in the index.html file, and just to be clear, that has to be in the section for templates within the class, which is called templates, or should be in that section. And then we put our CSS in the project CSS, and then to display that in, to give a menu item, and then to display that on a page, we just, in the client module, load that template and append it to the view form. That's it. So we can basically just use this as a web page builder. Take whatever HTML, and you can see I don't have any database tables associated with that page. And so we go over to look at our application, and that just appears as a menu item, which gets shown when we click on the menu there. So no database interaction here, but you can see we can basically do anything we want with layout and very easily display those generated pages. And Grapes is a nice tool that lets you do that sort of layout quickly and easily. Okay, so next thing you see on this forum is a little forum. Next thing you see on the application is a little forum, and this is a custom interface using some custom code to interact with the database. So you can see I've got a little button here to create a new topic, and so it's added to the database, and when we click on it, we get a post, and the default here says no post yet. Be sure or be the first to post. So I'm gonna write a little message. Oops, I did that wrong. I put my name in, but we will fix that in a second. Okay, so I put my name as hey everyone. So let's just take a look at the rest of this. We'll come back to this page because this is where all the work is. This is a custom interface to the database. But I've got a couple catalogs over here, and you can see the first one is just a standard no-code grid that comes with Jam.py, and it lets us look at all of these and actually edit them too. Okay, let's go into the topics grid. So what we've got going on here is I created a master details set of tables. And here, if we click on this topic 6, let's see, we want to go in here, we can see our topic 6, and here are the details. So I've covered this in previous tutorials. This is just a simple little master details table, and let's edit this author, because I didn't mean for that to be author of hey everyone. Let's save that, and we will go back to our custom page, and you can see, let's actually refresh that. Click on our topic 6, and you can see that that's been edited. And anything we edit here can be handled by the default grids, which are created no code by Jam.py. We can sort of go round trip. And then I have one of my favorite things to do is include other frameworks. SQL Page is just a simple little framework. And you can see here also I have all of the same access. So if I want to edit that, for example, using the SQL Page framework, let's say how are you? Cool. We save that, and that little SQL Page interface also has access to the database. We go back here, and you can see what's displayed now on the forum topics page is exactly what we've edited using that little third-party editor. So I did cover this in the past, how to insert another application into an iframe. Here's the code for this. You can see I'm just displaying the tables from the Jam.py database, and I've configured this little SQL Page app to use the database. In this case, it's a little SQLite database, which was created by the no-code schema builder in Jam.py. So let's take a quick look at that. in our application builder, you can see I've got a details table, just a text column called content, and a datetime column called created at. And then in the one of my journals, I have a table called topics. You can see it's in this database called Jam Forum. And you can see here that I've included the posts details table. So those work together. So again, when we look at the application here, we look at this is a grid that was created by Jam.py. We can see we have that master details set of tables displayed and editable there. Take a really quick look at how to do that. So this was created, to be clear, in a journal called topics, and we created the details here in a journal in a table called posts, and we put them together into that master details here by setting posts as the setting this as the details for the Jam.py custom HTML, the topics. That's all covered in previous tutorials. What's a little bit different here is I created some catalogs. These are separate pages, and each of these pages is very simple. What I did, you've seen previously, there's nothing here on this SQL page. None of these have any tables associated with them in these catalogs. They're just pages to be displayed in the menus and displayed when you click on the menus. And so, for example, all we're doing here is displaying. I have a little bit of a constant that's holding the SQL code, and you can see we've done this in a previous example. We clone a template that we have in our index.html page, just like we did for the grapes layout. Somewhere in here, I've got a little div that we want displayed on the SQL page. So we called that class name SQL page iframe container. There's some styling there. And the source of the iframe, we have an iframe tag. The source of that iframe, what's being displayed on this in this template, is this web page, which is this URL. That's our SQL page application. Very simple to set these up. And you can see, let's go back to this. Give it a size and some padding and so on. And we also have a little div called blank body. And so in our builder, let's go back to our SQL page JavaScript. So we have this template cloned into the page. We've defined a little SQL page or SQL code, a little variable called SQL code that holds all the code for this SQL page application. You can see it's just dealing with the tables from our database that's been created by Jam.py. It has a button, and it has a little table here where we can edit the fields. So that's SQL page code. And then we're also finding this blank body div in the template, and we're inserting that that little text area that we've created from the SQL page code that we defined, and just displaying that within the text area, appending it inside the div. And here I just have a little timeout on the page just to make sure it can scroll to the top. And then finally, we're putting that full template inside the view. So that's how we get this nice little application that we built here, along with some other things displayed. Refresh this and show it to you kind of cleanly. Up here, we go to our catalogs, SQL page, and you can see we have that iframe displaying the application, and here is our little blank body div, which is displaying the code that we want displayed, which shows the code used for this application. Okay, so there's a little bit more complicated, and you've got to remember that this little application, all it's doing is connecting to the database that we've created by creating that master details table directly in Jam.py and using the built-in no-code builder to do that. So this gives us a lot of easy to incorporate functionality by just making applications with other frameworks that you might be familiar with and connecting to the same database and displaying them on a page. There's a little bit more there about how you can display things. So very, very simple to display this stuff using the templates. Let's close all this. Save that. And now you can see we've got some more templates up here. Let's take a look at this. Look at our basic templates. So here we've got another template we call forum container. You can see it's got a class called topics view, and it's got another class called posts view. So that's what you see displayed when you go to the Jam.py custom HTML forums topic. What we're going to do here is display, get rid of this, we're going to display all the topics that are saved in the database, and then we're going to display posts that are saved in the database that are related in that master detail set of tables. So go back to our application, take a look at how we did this. And first, I want to just sort of cover how I connected the built-in no-code grids to display these master detail grids. So to make that work, you can see over here, I've got these catalogs, I've got a post grid, and I've got a topics grid. So the post grid just displays all of the rows in the posts detail table. So these are all associated with a particular master record. Each have their own identifying ID. And then the topics grid is just, this is a no-code grid built by Jam.py, where we can see all the topics, and then we can edit the details table items that are related to that particular master row. And these are fully working CRUD grids. And the way those are displayed is we go back here, I created a posts grid, and you can see all we're doing here, there is no table related with that task. It's just a little bit of client code. Clean this up a bit. And so all you're seeing here is we're emptying the content div on the page, and then we're the content area on that page, and then we're appending a div, which we call a table. And then the key here is we're going to grab in the task, one of the tasks, we're going to grab the details task called posts, and we're going to copy it, and that gets assigned the variable C. And then for that task on this particular page, so this is a separate task, not the page that we're currently on in the builder. We are on the UI grid instead of the details page that's created by Jam.py. We're creating the table for that particular task. So we're going to get a different table out of the application, and we're putting it in this div that we've just created called table. And we open it up, and what that does is displays all of our posts using the no-code grid that's created by Jam.py. So we can put that on another page. That's the key here. Okay, we do the same kind of thing for this thing we called topics grid, Jam.py default topics grid. So we've got some module here. There's a bunch of extraneous code here, but what you want to see is that we're emptying the content. We're appending a div to that section, and then here we are getting the table, which is related to the journals task called topics. That is where we created our master details tables. We're copying that here and getting into the variable C on this page. we're creating that table inside the div that we named table, and we're opening up that grid. So that's simple to include UI grids that are created without code by Jam.py on other pages in the application. So that's where we get this grid, and this is the full master details set of tables, and the editor that's created naturally by Jam.py, natively by Jam.py. And that full editor is imported onto this page into any table that we create, any div that we create. I shouldn't say any table, any div that we create, just by copying that task, the journals, topics, task, the topics journal, and then calling the create table function and then showing it. Okay, so that's how we include the default tables that are and grids that are built with Jam.py. Now, to use, and here's the real meat of this, to use those same tables and to build custom HTML, which displays data from those tables. We don't just want a grid, but we want to have some control about how we display this data and how we also work with it on the back end. I put this little example together of the forms. I'll just refresh this and go back to our custom HTML. So these are all these same tables that we've been dealing with, but displayed using custom HTML. So first of all, you can see I've added a page called, or I haven't added a page. What I've done is use this custom HTML form. And you can see here is where I've got the actual tables created. Okay, and in our client module, we have a client module and we have a server module. So go through how I did all this, and I kind of went to town doing custom code for both the Python side and the JavaScript side. So first thing you can see here is I'm going to be using a little bit of a template. So if I go back to my index.html, what I've done here is referred to this div which we've called forum container. Okay, so here we've got those couple classes, topics view and posts view. And I've got a couple functions here. Let's take a look at the render topics function. And just to be clear, all of these are included inside the handler for the onView form created event. So these things all get run when the view form is created, when you open that page. So I have this function definition called render topics, and what this does is it calls a server function called getAllTopics, which returns this variable called topics. So let's take a look at that getAllTopics function. This is calling the Python on the back end. You can see here I've got a bunch of Python, standard Python, but this part's really easy. This just uses some of the built-in Jam.py, we'll call it an ORM, the ability to deal with the database. And what we're doing here is we're taking the item, that is the table, it's displayed on the page. We have this function called createTopic, you can see this is Python, and we're appending to that item, and the title is being set to whatever title we've entered, and then the created column value is the current date and time, and then we're posting and applying that database row and returning back an ID value. And let's take a look at this. The getAllTopics is very simple. It opens the title, the item, opens the database table that we've got shown there, and it goes through, uses Python list comprehension to go through each row in that table and returns a list of dictionaries. And each dictionary has the ID value and the title value. So we get basically all the rows returned. So this is the getAllTopics, and this is the createTopic function. So we look at our front end again. Render topics calls this getAllTopics function, gets that value, the list value that's returned. If there's an error, it displays a little error. Do a little console. We have some console logs here to help us. And then we create a new little div here, and it's called topic list. We empty that. All right, we don't create it, actually, we import that from our topics view. There we go. You can see here we've got a topic list tag. So we go back in here and we're emptying the topic list, and for each of the rows in the list that we got back from the back end, from the Python code, we're setting or generating some new HTML, and then we're appending that to the list that we're displaying on the page. So that builds the custom code which is displaying this bunch of rows from the database. And to be really clear again, this is called render topics. That function on the front end is called render topics. It calls the get all topics Python code, gets that list of rows that's generated from the Python on the back end, and then builds the HTML from that. And that's the key here. It builds the HTML we need, and we can pop that into a template that we've got existing in index.html. And then down here at the bottom, we just call that render topics function right away. So we open the page, it displays that. Okay, so now you can see also in this index.html, we have a form container. Let's find this. You can also see displayed right here in this topics view div, we have a button called create topic button. So we have another function here that handles the click event of that create topic button. And so let's just see what that does really quick. And again, this is all generated when we first open the page. So now whenever that button, which is in our index.html layout template, whenever that gets clicked, we do all this. So we set a variable here called title, which is going to be set to whatever the user responds to this prompt. Enter a topic title. So title gets entered. If there's no title entered, we just return. It just doesn't go through and do anything. Otherwise, if there's a title that's been entered, we call this create topic function on the server. Pass it the title. And of course, we handle an error. If there is an error, get the response. Otherwise, we render the topics again. Okay, so let's take a look at our function here, this create topic server function. You can see down here, all this does is it goes through what we've seen before. We add the database, add a row to the database, and set the title value to what's been passed from the front end, was prompted to the user, sets the current date, and appends it, and then returns the item ID if we want it. And that's it. So clicking that button will add a new row to the database, and that all uses the built-in ORM in Jam.py. So for the other things here, what I've done is gotten a little fancier, and this is going to get a little deep, but I'm going to try and go as quickly as possible. And that's really all you need to interface custom HTML with the database. Build any HTML you want. Use a builder such as Grapes or any other custom HTML. Include those HTML templates in your index.html. Refer to the buttons and the divs that you have in that HTML, and build as you need and display as you need elements that you pull in from the back end or the front end using the ORM. So that's really all you need. But I think of interest to anybody who does anything with Python, you want to be able to use all of the power of Python and all the power of JavaScript, however you want to be able to deal with these bits of data in the database. So I've gone a little farther here and actually included some SQLAlchemy code here so that we can use some SQLAlchemy functions, and this can be useful if you've got some existing code and you want to be able to work with that code. So what I've done here is we've got all the normal imports to deal with SQLAlchemy. And what I've done here is, just like I did with the SQL page application and other examples, what I'm doing here is setting the database URL to be the database that I've created in Jam.py. So that master details set of tables is stored in this SQLite database. And this is the schema that we have set up. So I have a table name called Jam Forum Topics. It's got an ID, a title, a created at, and a posts relationship for the details table. And then here I've got a schema for the posts table name in the Jam.py that's created by a Jam.py application is Jam Forum Posts, and it's got an ID, a deleted column to show whether that has a soft delete, a master ID, master record ID, which is where we store the link to the topic, and then an author, a content created at, and a topic, which is a relationship between the topics and the posts. So that's our schema definition. And then you can see here I've got a create post function and a get posts function, which we're going to call from the front end when we run some of those custom HTML buttons that we've got, or when we click on links. Okay, so take a look at this. This is just some standard. I'm printing some things on the back end, and we've passed this a topic ID. So we'll look at this from the front end in a second. But what this function basically does, get posts by topic, is it takes in a topic ID and sets a query. As typical, this should be familiar if you're doing any Python programming with databases, SQLAlchemy, query of the post table, and we're setting the record ID for any place where it matches the topic ID. So we're using that link, getting all the posts for that topic ID. And then we're just serializing a little bit of data here into a list of dictionaries. Again, this is a list comprehension, so we're going through all the items in the posts that were returned from the database. And for each of those, we're creating a dictionary that has the ID, the author, the content, and the created at values, and return those results. Okay, so on the front end, get posts by topic is the function we're calling here. So we have a load functions, or a load posts function, and we also have this. Let's see here. To look at what I've got in the code here, we have render topics. Okay, so load posts, and it takes it's going to use a topic ID. So here we just have a little bit of console logging, a little bit of debug output, and here is where we run the get posts by topic. So when this function is called, load post is called, we run that function we just looked on the back end, pass it the topic ID when we're logging here, and then we use this forum container. So that is this template that we've created here for the forum container. It contains our topics view and our post view. And basically, if there's nothing here, we do this. And otherwise, we get rid of all of the previous posts before we add a new one. And then we append to this simple post section with some styling. We append that to the forum container. And then we set a variable to refer to that div. We empty it, and then we append a little bit of a header. And then if there's no row in the return data, we show this little message. We append that to the div. Otherwise, we go through the posts that we've gotten from our server call, right, right here, and return that value as posts. So otherwise, we go through each post and append again some custom HTML that shows the author's name in bold, and then the content of that row and the created at value, and with some little custom HTML styling. So that's what's generating the custom HTML displays the data from the database. And then we post the log a console output, just some debug output. And then here we have another function that's showing when the post button is clicked, we're going to go through all this. We get an author's name, we get a content name from the user from a prompt. If it's empty, exit the function. Otherwise, do a little bit of logging. And then here, so this function, again, which handles the clicking of this post button, which is in our HTML create post button down here. So we're showing our showing that in our display. And what that does is it calls the create post function on the back end, passes it the topic ID, the author, and the content. And if we have an error, we handle it. And otherwise, we load the posts. So let's just really quickly again take a look at that create post function. Topics down here. Create post is doing all this. It's setting, using this time SQLAlchemy, not using the built-in ORM. We're taking our topic ID, our author, and our content, which is passed from the front end, and we're creating a new post and then adding that to the session, adding that to the database with all of those values. So if you're familiar with SQLAlchemy at all, that should make clear sense. And to be honest, the database system in Jam.py is much simpler to use than SQLAlchemy. So for example, you can just do something like this to get all the values from a database table. And you just do something like this to create new values. But I wanted to include the SQLAlchemy code here just to really kind of dive in how you can interact with standard Python, include anything you're used to doing with in any sort of system. If you know Python at all, you can use any libraries that you're familiar with and all the other massive ecosystem of Python here in the back end. And you've already seen you can do anything you want on the front end, use other tools to help build. So I think that gives a pretty deep dive into how you can actually integrate all this sort of custom code and build custom interfaces and attach those custom interfaces to results of database queries that you run either using the Jam.py tools or using any other tools that you're familiar with in Python, and use any other tools that you're familiar with on the front end, especially those that are built in the jQuery and Bootstrap tools that are already built in. And also how to include other tools so you can deal with the database using really any framework and just kind of show those things on a layout in a Jam.py application. And we're doing all that from using a database that was created in Jam.py with the no-code tools, in this case just to build a simple master details table. But all those things connect to those tables in the ways that you may be familiar with. So I think that's a really helpful set of little dives to show how you can really use normal mainstream tools to integrate with Jam.py. I'm going to show you one more thing here. This is maybe a bit out of the scope of this, but I want to include it here because it's necessary if you're going to do anything with SQLAlchemy. So this is my normal routine. It's very, very simple to install Jam.py. You create an environment, change that environment, pip install. There should be here a source and activate. Let's include that. And then you pip install Jam.py, run the Jam project to create a project, run the server on whatever port you want. And then here, what I did to include the version of SQLAlchemy that I was using, so in this case, I was installing this version, which is at the time of this writing is the most current version. That is not the version that's installed with Jam.py. So really important here, this file, I'm going to edit it. I use Nano here. You can use Micro or Vim or anything else you want to edit this particular file, the server classes. And we want to use, instead of the third-party SQLAlchemy pool, we want to import from SQLAlchemy pool. That's important because Jam.py will be using its own version of SQLAlchemy, and we want to use the one that we've got installed. You can see I printed out this version. You want to make sure you're using the version that you pip install in your application. And then you can run the application again. And I had one little note here too. When you're creating a project and exporting, so you can export any project you want from your development server, export it, creates a zip file, and then you can import it on the production server. Really important to see. Let's go ahead and do this here to see. So here's our whole project. In that export is a little file called task.dat. And that has all the information about which databases are going to be used. So when we're doing this, we want to make sure that you use the same project name. And the database name is important. Jam.py will not import into an existing SQLite database on your production server. So when you're importing a project, if you're using SQLite, you need to edit this task.dat file so that the original database name you're using is changed. So if you're going to put this in a different folder on your server, be sure to change this little database URL item in that task.dat file to point to where the new folder and the new database are going to be located. Otherwise, it'll put it in that folder. And if you on your server have that database existing already, it won't import. You'll get a notice that it'll get a notification that you won't be able to use that. So what you need to do is edit this task.dat. Let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just edit the task.dat. Let's see here where we are. We'll open that folder or open that file. I'll go ahead and do it in Notepad++. And so what we're going to do is search for this little thing, database URL. Try this one more time. I'm going to search for database URL. Copy that. See if we can get this here to work where we want. There we go. And make sure we're in the right file. I want to be in my task.dat file. Try that again. Database URL. So now you can see we've got this. Where is it here? I don't have the nicest way to show this. Try one more time. I think this is, yeah, it's been covered up by my screen capture here. So database URL, you need to change this to have the correct folder and file name for your content. This is the name of the SQLite database that you've created, and of course you can just copy that one single file onto your server, and it'll work. But if this folder and file name are different on your production server than where you developed the application you're trying to export and import onto your production server, this right here needs to be changed in your .dat file, and you save that .dat file back into the zip file that you've downloaded. So that's a little gotcha. If you haven't tried doing that yet, you need to make sure that you follow those bits. So I think that's enough of a deep dive for this time. Should get you doing things pretty productively to really extend what you can do with Jam.py beyond just the no-code, the really fantastic no-code built-in tools to really customize and integrate other code and tools like visual builders into your systems. And of course, all of this can be done. A lot of this stuff can just be generated by by generative AI. Use ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek or any of the other tools that are great at building this sort of code. And you can talk and interact and ask your AI, I need to create a div that has this and this in it, and let it generate things. And you can work interactively to sort of build these things out, using visual builders to build visual stuff if that's helpful, and kind of going round trip between all these things. The key is to know where these things have to be placed and how to interact with those things that are displayed, things like buttons and divs where you can display custom content, and how you generate that custom content using custom JavaScript on the front end and custom Python on the back end. Hopefully this has provided a good enough introduction that you can really sort of take off from there.